After a lifetime of operating in the shadows, Amanda Waller is finally ready to move into the light with her most devious plan to date, one that targets every superhuman on planet Earth. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Absolute Power Ground Zero issue number 1, the kickoff to DC's big new summer mega event, shall we? Alright then, so this prologue issue is actually a prologue anthology cut into 3 different stories from 3 different writers, each detailing a different phase of Waller's new master plan. First up, we have a story by NICOLE Maines, which essentially acts as the real finale to that Suicide Squad Dream Team book that she was writing previously, which, you guessed it, was also a prelude to Absolute Power. If you read that book, you'll remember that the Wall had actually managed to Shanghai Dreamer into servitude working for her and the Suicide Squad. Together, they managed to capture the island nation of Gamora, where Waller has erected a massive gulag wherein she plans to imprison all of her enemies, including, you guessed it, basically everyone in the superhero community. It seems that there's just one last loose end that needs tying up, and that would be Jay Nakamura, son of Gamora's previous president who Waller had murdered in her coup on the island. If you were reading Tom Taylor's Superman book, you'll know that Jay Nakamura is actually a superhuman himself with the ability to phase shift, which means catching him is kinda difficult. You know, you can't capture what you can't grab, that sort of thing, though leave it to Deadeye, Waller's own nephew, to figure out the best way to stop this kid up is to actually shoot him in the feet at the very point wherein he must physically make contact with the ground to, you know, keep going. Jay ends up seeing Dreamer, and for a second there he thinks he's saved. After all, Dreamer is actually an affiliate of the Superman family, and Naya actually helped Jay's boyfriend, John Kent, liberate the island nation of Gamora once before from the evil Henry Bendix, only this time Dreamer's not here to save Jay, she's here to capture him. She doesn't want to fight, as Waller has forced her into servitude. This is actually a pretty interesting matchup because we learn dream power is actually enough to trump phase shifting. I guess Van Halen was right, dreams are strong. With Jay locked up inside Waller's brand new super prison, Dreamer comes to him and tries to plead her case that she doesn't want to actually be doing any of this evil stuff, that Waller kidnapped her father and sister as well as threatened her alien community of Parthas. In what is admittedly a pretty refreshing and human change of pace, Jay doesn't want to hear any of this, basically going, oh, so we're comparing tragedies right now. Well, Waller murdered my mother and conquered my ancestral homeland with your help, so, you know, we're not the same and I'm not just gonna forgive you. Dreamer gets so roasted so hard by this kid she isn't even able to tell the whole story, that Waller put bombs inside her family's bodies that will explode if Waller's own heart stops. And that despite what it looks like to the outside world, Dreamer really is just waiting for her chance to turn against Waller and try and make everything right. Now, after that, we get treated to a Chip Zdarsky story, one that sees the resurrection of Johnny Starr, aka Time Commander. Don't know who this guy is? Well, he's a fairly obscure Bob Haney creation from the 60s, who had actually previously been used in some Batman urban legend stories, as well as some Super Son tales. Basically, all you need to know is that he's another time-traveling supervillain, one with a high-tech hourglass that allows him to rewind time. Waller has resurrected Starr because she wants him to use his amazing chronal abilities to help repair the FAILSAFE robot. Don't know what this thing is? Then you must not have been reading Chip Zdarsky's Batman stories for the last couple years. Basically, this thing is the goddamn Terminator. Batman designed it himself for the sole purpose of taking himself down should he ever go too far and end up actually killing someone. It was actually so strong it conquered Gotham and managed to beat both the Bat family and the Justice League single-handedly. So yeah, it falling into Waller's hands is pretty damn bad. Starr works slowly in hopes of trying to figure out the best method of escape, but of course, because he's a scientist, his curiosity ends up getting the best of him and he decides to look forward in time to see what would happen if he actually did rebuild the failsafe robot, and needless to say, he is absolutely sickened and horrified by the visions of the future he sees, so much to the point he's willing to risk it all to try and escape right now. Time Commander does this by attempting to trick one of Waller's brand new task force henchmen to take him into the supply room, where he stabs this guy with an electric screwdriver before eventually jerry-rigging a device that he hopes will take him so far back into the past Waller won't be able to get him. But of course, this is the Wall we're dealing with, and this isn't exactly Amanda's first time dealing with time-traveling supervillains. Because of that, she's gone out of her way to install special chronal routers throughout her brand new base of operations, meaning anytime that Time Commander attempts to jump through time and escape, all he ends up doing doing is going back right to the very moment he got woken up, meaning that he can either get his ass back to work or live out the absolute worst Groundhog Day for the rest of existence. Waller is pleased when Star manages to get the failsafe robot back online, but that's not where it ends. One killer unstoppable machine is nice, but imagine a whole army of Amazo robots, modeled after the individual members of the Justice League. Well, that would be exactly what the Wall ordered. Now, the final story in this three-part collection actually comes to us courtesy of Joshua Williamson, and it's by far my favorite and easily the best of this three-pack. It also acts as an epilogue to House of Brainiac, which, you guessed it, ended this week. We see Queen Brainiac, Brainiac's brand new experiment in trying to understand the human notion of love, escape his exploding base, only to be intercepted by Waller and her people. This thing is an incredibly state-of-the-art form of mechanical life. The only problem is that its entire systems have been wiped, meaning it's going to have to learn everything all over again. Which Waller is all too happy to do, A, because it actually furthers her own personal goals, and B, because she was stuck in a pissing contest with a multiversal cabal of Brainiacs masquerading as the Light. In fact, they were the ones who actually rescued her from Earth 3 and are the major driving force as to why her morality has shifted from dark shades of gray to just, dark. Waller and her people decide the best way to get the Queen Brainiac on their side is to actually raise her like a child in a simulation that uses technology that Green Arrow stole from Sanctuary. In this simulation, every year is a day. Waller manages to present herself as the Queen Brainiac's mother and spends the next 24 years actively teaching her to hate superheroes, including the Justice League. She tells her robot daughter that there are people out there who don't deserve power, and so long as they have it, they will never be safe. I also like that the Superman in this little simulation is very clearly referencing imagery from the Dark Knight Returns Superman. This also might be like one of the most interesting and easily most evil things Waller has ever done. She has always been a master manipulator, but she's usually used threats of force. Here, though, she's trying to manipulate Queen Brainiac by forging a real mother-daughter relationship, which only gets more interesting when you remember that Waller's whole origin, her whole reason for becoming a spy in the first place, was because of her murdered family, and yet here she actually gets to live a whole life and grow old before eventually getting taken out of the simulation Rick and Morty style. And with this newest unstoppable mechanical killing machine on Waller's side, the comic finally comes to a close. And so that was Absolute Power Ground Zero issue number 1, everybody, and I gotta admit, coming into this big event, I wasn't exactly sure how to feel. On the surface, to me, it just looked like, oh really, another big months-long summer story that will see the Justice League fight evil robot versions of themselves. Yeah, we haven't done that before a dozen times. Yet, to this issue's credit, it actually does a really good job selling me on the story, mainly by tying together about a dozen different story plot lines from a bunch of different books in a way that I found very satisfying. Hell, if you weren't reading any of those books I mentioned, then reading this really does end up becoming required, because how else are you gonna know all the different moving parts? Really though, I think it's the last one that really did it for me. I like this complex take on Amanda Waller, getting to see a side of her we almost never see, but one that also builds on character traits that we've seen before. Of course, Amanda Waller would try and create a team of unfeeling, easily controllable machines. Her whole shtick for decades with the Suicide Squad has basically been all about stealing autonomy from living human beings, and when that isn't dastardly enough, time to raise and build your own army. I'll actually be really interested to see the continued growth and probable eventual disillusionment of her relationship with the Queen Brainiac. Again, Waller never got to be a mother to her own children because the world was a dangerous place where they ended up getting taken away from her, but at the same time, had her family lived, how would they feel about the person she's become? There's actually a lot of really juicy material in there, and I hope all of these different tie-ins somewhere along the way will actually focus on this. Overall, I would give this issue an 8 out of 10, very pleasantly surprised. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow, and help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye bye.